Sally finally makes landfall, bringing the potential for historic flooding to the Gulf Coast, a significant step toward Mideast peace. And the billionaire who said that he wanted to die broke is now broke, and he couldn't be happier. Here's what you need to know. Good morning. This is Cheddar's Need2Know podcast for Wednesday, September 16th. I am Jill Wagner with Parlo Versano. Hi, Parlo.
This month is really trucking along, huh? We're already in the back half of it here.
It is. Today is my anniversary, actually. It really snuck up on us
Congratulations.
this year. Thank you.
Congratulations, Mike. Congratulations, Jill. How many years?
3.
3. Hey, they say the first year's the hardest, don't they? I just made that up. I don't know.
My husband said to me the other day, he goes, I feel like we've been married like 30 years. And I'm like, I don't think that's a compliment. He's like, no, I mean it is a compliment. I'm like, I don't know, Michael. That doesn't sound complimentary.
I think it is. I mean, I feel the same way with I think just because Becky and I have been spending so much time together this year, I think this year should probably count as at least 2.
Totally. All right, so we're 4 years in.
Okay, good.
All right, let's get to some news. I want to start with the weather and climate. So Sally is making landfall at this hour, which is 6 a.m. Eastern time, near the Gulf Shores, of Alabama, after shifting eastward on its crawl toward land. Okay, this storm is moving super slow, about 2 miles per hour. That is about the speed of a leisurely stroll. Like, that is even slower. I mean, You can walk a lot faster than that. So it's bringing prolonged torrential rain to the coast. We're talking up to 35 inches in some places along the Alabama coast and the Florida Panhandle. The hurricane is expected to pick up speed and weaken today as it moves inland. But the impact of flooding, that's really what to look out for today.
Yeah, this is definitely a flooding event in the process of unfolding here. And remember, global warming weakens atmospheric circulation. That's one of the things that experts say happens when the climate warms. And what that means is essentially it affects hurricane speeds. It's why they're getting slower in a lot of cases. Not all of them. I mean, we had the one a few weeks ago that was moving.
Right? That one?
Well, that one moved really fast. And then the one that I always forget, the one that hit up in Louisiana a month ago, that one moved really fast too. But there are some that are just getting slower, and the experts are saying that has to do with climate change. But essentially, storms are getting stronger, slower, and wetter, right? Which is just a bad combination. But I do want to mention, while we're sort of talking about the climate, the situation with the fires, Jill. Firefighters in Los Angeles this morning working to beat back a wildfire that has come within 500 feet of the historic Mount Wilson Observatory. This is one of those observatories in the hills of LA that has a lot of those broadcast towers on it. The air, meanwhile, from Seattle to San Francisco has now been among the most polluted on Earth for a week. And the haze has now settled over much of the continent. Jill, I don't know if you were able to I don't know if you've checked out the sun lately, but if you're in the Northeast today, take a look at the sun. I mean, don't stare at it, but take a gander at it, because it's really noticeable. There's sort of this orangey haze that you can see when you look towards the sun. It's just incredible when you think about it. I mean, we're 3,000 miles away from these fires?
You have to wonder, forgetting just the view, what is it doing to our air quality here? We know LA and Portland, some of the worst now in the world. So besides for the fact that, blue skies are a thing of the past, I was just wondering,
right,
what that means for our air quality.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if those particulates, if they get that, if they dissipate, if they get that far, I'm not sure. But it's definitely noticeable visually.
All right, let's switch gears and talk about this major foreign policy win for President Trump. We had leaders from Israel, Bahrain, and the United Arab Emirates officially agreeing to formalize diplomatic relations in a signing ceremony at the White House. It's known as the Abraham Accords. This agreement is still pretty vague, but it will involve these 3 countries setting up embassies with one another, having more formalized trade agreements. Israel had already established an unofficial relationship with some Gulf countries, mostly as a way to counter Iran. But the accord makes it official with 2 of them, and it could lead more Arab nations to join. Remember, this did start with just the UAE. So, Bahrain already got on board.
Yeah, and I think that's the hope, right? That more of these oil-rich Gulf countries see the writing on the wall. Look, I mean, I don't think that this is Jill and I, you and I were talking about this yesterday. I don't think that this is like the Mideast peace deal that the White House is saying it is. Like this is it, but it is unquestionably a step in the right direction. And it is a big win, as you just said, for Donald Trump. I mean, first of all, he can now say he's done more for peace in the region than Barack Obama, and that would be true. I mean, yeah, I'm sure I just made some liberals' heads explode there, but that's a fact. And I mean, I think to me, anything that moves, an oppressive state like a Bahrain or like a UAE. Remember, these are countries with really bad human rights records. Anything that moves them towards like sort of greater tolerance, better economic development by being closer with Israel, that's a good thing for the region. Full stop, and we should all appreciate that. And I just think the hope is that this can be the beginning of something bigger, right? I mean, you're sort of more read in on these issues, I think, than I am, but that's sort of my takeaway as a layman.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly seen as a win for for Benjamin Netanyahu. What it leaves out, of course, is the Palestinians, though, many of whom spent yesterday protesting. Hamas fired rockets into Israel. The Palestinian president, Mahmoud Abbas, he says, only Israel's withdrawal from occupied territories can bring peace to the Middle East. And in a way, a lot of Palestinians do feel betrayed by the UAE and Bahrain. I do want to mention, I think I gave this a shout out when the deal first news broke. If you are, anyone who's listening, if you're interested in learning more about this, I highly recommend The Daily from the New York Times. This episode, it's called A Dinner and a Deal. And it's this backstory about how the deal with the UAE and Israel first kind of came about. And it just shows you that so much of this is just being in the right place at the right time, and it is about people and relationships that people have with each other. I highly recommend taking a listen to it for great color on this.
And I mean, look, I think that first of all, Netanyahu likes Trump, and he didn't like Obama, so I'm sure that's certainly part of it. And I'm going to say something that I'm probably going to regret, but we're all about challenging assumptions on this podcast show.
Say it.
But there was all this hubbub last week. I think Baker and I actually mentioned on the pod because Trump was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize for this by this sort of like wacky Norwegian politician, and then it sort of came out that it was a forgery, the nomination, and people were just kind of like making fun of it, like Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. Can you imagine? I don't know. I mean, is it crazy to think that the president of the United States deserves the Nobel Peace Prize for something like this? I mean, Barack Obama got one. He didn't do anything. He got one before he was even
after just his speech in Germany, right?
And I can't believe that. I mean, I don't think I'm breaking any news here by saying that I personally believe that the Trump presidency is essentially an abject failure in most ways, especially with the coronavirus response, if for no other reason. But that being said, this is significant, right?
I think so. I'm not going to weigh in on the Nobel Peace Prize, but I do think that, again, in any other news cycle, this would have been a front page story and a major. It is a major story, but it would have gotten a lot more play, I think, in mainstream media if there weren't wildfires and a hurricane and a pandemic and everything else going on.
Also, Jill, not to belabor, but also, President Trump doesn't get a lot of credit for a lot of things because he doesn't do himself any favors. So then when he actually does preside over something, significant and notable, he probably doesn't get the credit he deserves, I guess would be one way to put that, right?
Right. I mean, part of the coverage yesterday, and I would say perhaps rightfully so, was the fact that at the signing ceremony, there was basically no social distancing. They were cramming a bunch of people in pretty close quarters, and that was like a subplot of this historic peace agreement.
Or bad messaging. Yeah.
Yeah. I do want to stick with politics now. President Trump participated in an ABC News town hall last night with undecided voters, which is a rare example of him doing non-Fox News media. He basically denied that he downplayed the coronavirus, contradicting his own words to Bob Woodward that we heard on the tape. He said the U.S. response has been, quote, tremendous. He cast doubt on the efficacy of masks. And he also endorsed herd immunity, although he called it herd mentality, which is like not what you want at all, ever.
Yeah.
He accidentally called it that by accident.
But I mean, assuming that he meant herd mentality. I mean, now I'm saying it. Assuming that he meant herd immunity. I mean, that's basically endorsing, 2 to 3 million American deaths. That's what the experts believe would take for us to get to that place. I mean, I think that first of all,
it's basically saying let's do nothing, wait till enough people get it, and at that point it'll stop spreading.
Right. Now, I guess credit to him for doing this town hall because, again, like you said, he doesn't really go out of the Fox News bubble. And this was, this was with undecided voters. But I think it's going to be – I'll be very curious to see if any minds were made up because, he's not particularly good at speaking to undecided voters. He's very good at speaking to his base and firing the base up. But I don't think he said anything last night. And I watched a bunch of it, and my friend actually produced it. But I don't there was nothing in there that I think that he did himself any favors on. But speaking of the virus, Jill, I did want to mention New York City here where we are. There are slight signs that the virus is reemerging here. Positive infection rates broke 1% yesterday for the first time in almost 40 days. Just a touch over 1%. I don't think that's not something to freak out about, but it is something to mention. NYU, they had to lock down a dorm because 4 freshmen tested positive the other day. JP Morgan, one of the biggest employers in this city, they had to send a bunch of their employees home yesterday, less than a week after they came back to the office because there was a positive case on one of the trading floors. It just shows you. I mean, it's this thing is such a persistent little that when it just gets you, right. I don't know. It's as soon as you try and get back to normal, it's just there waiting for you. It's so frustrating, right?
It is, and I've taken myself out of my bubble where I basically lived in my in-laws' house and didn't leave their block for 4 or 5 months, and recently I've had to get out there a bit more. And, it's like we're all relying on each other. And I went to pick up some food at a deli, and there was somebody who had, you could eat inside, and there was someone who was eating, and he had finished, and he was still just sitting there without a mask on. And it's like, I want to say to these people, like, who are you? Like, how dare you?
I know.
I mean, you're putting me at risk. Unless you could show me your coronavirus test that you took 1 minute ago, and it was negative, like, put a mask on or leave the restaurant. I mean, it's just, I don't know. And I guess it's like, look, I don't have to go in and pick up food. I don't have to go food shopping. I see people with masks under their nose, and it's frustrating. I've hired some people in my home, and this is really frustrating as well, like to do construction and to clean and just to help get my house in order. And I will kind of like sneak up on them, and they're not wearing masks. And we have been very clear, please wear masks. Like, I'm wearing a mask in my own home. If I'm wearing a mask, you need to wear a mask. And you know what? They don't. But, they're not wearing a mask. But when if they don't think I'm looking. So,
right.
I mean, that's my rant for the morning, but it's like not surprising to me. It's surprising that it's taken this long for New York to inch back up.
Well, I think there's just so much fatigue, right? I mean, but that being said, like again, in my neighborhood, everyone is wearing a mask at all times when they're like in public. It's just like it's gotten so well, just like everyone has been very well adjusted to that. But again, from time to time, I see somebody with the mask on the wrong way, or my sister was saying she was on the bus the other day and some woman just straight up wasn't wearing a mask, and she said something to her, and they got into like an altercation.
Oh, really? I feel like I would be friends with your sister.
Yeah, you absolutely would. She's one of our top listeners. She listens every day and sends me comments. But yeah, look, I think it's tough, and you don't want to be one of those people who's like nagging or like saying something to people just on the street who you don't know about it, right? But I think that's different from if somebody's working for you in your home. That's not acceptable.
We got carpet put in a couple of the rooms, and the person who brought the carpet in wasn't wearing a mask. And it's just like, And like the movers, like these are not even optional things, right? Like I can't physically move my dresser into my house, so I need a mover to help do it. And I will say, I spoke to a couple of them. Everyone was pretty nice when I said, please wear a mask. But I don't know. You could also do everything right and somehow still get it. So it is pretty scary. It's getting cold. People aren't going to want to stay outside as much. So I guess that's what you get. In more places here at Cheddar, I think we're letting people come back if they want.
We'll see.
That makes me nervous. I will tell you, it makes me nervous. I watch actually some news broadcasts, and I can't believe the anchors are sitting at the same desk. I know they're 6 feet apart, but that even surprises me too. I don't know if you've noticed that.
I haven't seen any of that, but yeah, I guess it is kind of weird.
All right, I think we just went off on a tangent per usual.
Sorry.
So let's rein ourselves back in. The city of Louisville, Kentucky is going to be paying the family of Brianna Taylor $12 million in a legal settlement over her death. This is one of the largest ever for a black victim of police shooting. The settlement also requires that the city enact certain police reforms, including a rule that supervisors have to sign off on search warrants. Taylor, of course, was killed by Louisville police officers who were executing a no-knock warrant on her apartment in March. The incident is still under investigation by both the city and the feds, and no criminal charges have been brought thus far.
Yeah, and that, of course, is a big sticking point here. There's been a lot of talk about charging these officers, but it's not exactly clear what they would be charged with to me. I was looking into this yesterday because I was just curious, because you always hear when are the officers going to be charged? Kentucky has a castle doctrine law. This is one of these laws that says you can basically kill an intruder in self-defense in your home. But the thing is, you also can't claim self-defense if you're the aggressor. This is why Taylor's boyfriend was originally arrested before the charges were dropped and he was released, because he technically shot first in this incident. First of all, I'm not even remotely trying to put get the police off the hook here. I'm just trying to give a little context. At the same time, these laws have carve-outs for cops who can't be considered aggressors if they are acting in their capacity as police officers, right? So you have a very murky legal issue at play here, and I think people should not be surprised if these police officers are never charged in this killing. And I think that if the investigation ends and they say, look, we're not going to charge them, that there's no legal basis to do so, that's going to be a major flare-up, I think, in the sort of social unrest that we've been seeing. I think, with this case, we've been talking about it for a long time now. My hope would be this would at least be the end of the no-knock raid, which is really a travesty of law enforcement. It's a travesty, I think, that they're still legal in most states. And by the way, even Rand Paul agrees with that. It's not just me. He is sponsoring a bill in the Senate to outlaw these no-knock warrants.
Is he like the litmus test? Like, if even Rand Paul.
Rand Paul and I agree on essentially nothing, I would assume, but I think we agree on this, so it's got to mean something.
Let's talk tech. Apple unveiled a slew of new hardware and software products, including a new entry-level iPad, a new iPad Air, 2 new Apple Watches, a fitness service for watch users, and a 3-tiered bundle that puts Apple Music, iCloud, and other recurring services under one subscription called Apple One. The services bundle already facing criticism that it's another way that Apple's being anti-competitive. Spotify immediately blasted this bundle as something that will, quote, cause irreparable harm to the developer community. I don't know if you got a look at Apple's new announcements, Carlo. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think the thing that they announced that I found most newsworthy was what you just said, which is this bundle. Because, again, we've talked about this on the podcast ad nauseum, Joel. But if you're a company like Apple, you're trying to become this recurring revenue company, right? So you're not just where people get their devices, but you basically have a hook in with people paying X dollars a month for whatever services. So that's where this comes into play. I mean, think about it if you're a family, right? For $20 a month, you get Apple Music, Apple TV, iCloud storage, and Apple Arcade, which is like their gaming system for your kids. That's a good deal, right? That may make you, even if you have Spotify, that may make you want to bail out on them, even if Spotify is probably the better streaming platform. That's why Spotify came out and said this is a disaster for competition, because it's these bundles, I think, that is sort of the wave of the future, especially, again, if you're like a family and you're trying to save a couple bucks and make everybody happy, right?
Yeah, I mean, notably absent from yesterday was anything about an iPhone, the iPhone 12, which should be capable of 5G.
Yep.
We're expecting that maybe in October. So that's a huge announcement. Also, I think their foray into fitness was a pretty big move. You know, I guess it's a push against Peloton and some of these other stay-at-home fitness apps that we've been seeing and fitness services, but basically kind of saying like this working out at home and not at a gym might be here for a while. It basically give you access to personal trainers and classes, things like that.
And it's all through the watch, which is something I don't really get. I don't have any desire to have one of those things, but I know plenty of people who do and they like them. So I guess there's something to it. But even the Peloton CEO, Jill, came out yesterday and said, this is essentially, Apple legitimizing what we do, which is this idea of at-home fitness.
It's a really interesting business question. I'm glad that you just brought that up because the idea is kind of like, does a high tide raise all ships, right? So is the fact that more people might be working out at home, is that actually good for Peloton, right? Like maybe people will get Apple's Fitness Plus and realize they like working out at home. It's a lot less expensive than Peloton, and then turn around and say, you know what, maybe I will spring for a Peloton. Elon Musk has made that point with Tesla, that the more competitors, the better for electric vehicles, because the more people who want to drive them, the better it is just for the whole market and the whole industry. I guess we'll see, though. Time will tell. Finally, a really nice story to end on. One of the greatest runs of philanthropic giving in modern history has come to an end. Chuck Feeney, a reclusive billionaire who founded Duty-Free Shoppers, which I'm sure anyone who's been to an international airport has seen. He officially has given away all of his money to charity. Feeney has closed his philanthropic organization after decades of high-impact donations to causes ranging from healthcare in Vietnam to anti-death penalty organizations. He anonymously gave away $8 billion in all, setting aside about $2 million for he and his wife's retirement, meaning that he donated 375,000% of his current net worth. Feeney is 89 years old, and he says it's a lot more fun to give your money away while you are still alive.
I just love this story, Jill. It's I linked to it in the newsletter today. It's in Forbes magazine. They talked to him. He's just this guy's like the definition of a mensch, right? He lives in a little apartment, looks like a monastery. He says he's never really been interested in the trappings of wealth, but he likes to make these really high impact donations to specific causes. He's behind this new tech hub in New York City on Roosevelt Island. That's part of Cornell's campus. That was his alma mater. So yeah, just a cute little story. And I was going to say, are you listening, Jeff Bezos? Like, this is, this could be you. Once you have, $100 billion, it's kind of all, it doesn't really matter after that, right?
I mean, it is so corny to say, but I mean, I get a lot more joy out of giving a gift to somebody than purchasing something myself. I guess.
Yeah, imagine
it's
doing
like
that
a really
at the billion.
Comfortable pair of sweatpants or something. That I get joy out of. Other than that, I'd prefer to give.
Well, and imagine doing it at the billions of dollars level, right? Like, yeah, I would love to do that. Sadly, I don't think that's in the cards for me or you, but I don't know.
I feel like if I had all the money in the world, maybe like scholarships would be something that I'd.
Yeah.
I think like that's a really concrete way to pay for somebody to go to college, to make a difference in somebody's life. Great problem to have, right? A great decision. Okay. Great way to end this podcast, Carlo. For everyone listening, thank you. That's what you need to know for Wednesday, September 16th.
All right, guys. See you tomorrow.